Hey guys, Fatai here, and today I will be looking at an important topic in our Google Sheets series, which is the lookup function. This is a very popular function within Google Sheets, also present in Excel. And I will be taking you through how to make use of the lookup functions, what exactly those lookup function does, and how you can use it to improve your analysis. So without wasting much time, let's get right into the video. So in this case, we want to explain what lookup function is and how it works, and I've set up like an example which I'm going to walk you through in this video. So the first thing that you need to understand is what is lookup function. So from the word lookup, it's a function that is used within Google Sheets or any spreadsheet to search for certain information, and then having searched for that information, return like a value in specific column. So we have VLOOKUP and we have vertical, we have HLOOKUP. So VLOOKUP meaning vertical lookup, and it helps us to search for information and return that information from a column. And that means we can get information such as the ID, the names, the type, and the like. So when I walk you through an example, you understand exactly what the definition is talking about. But if you want to get like a better understanding, VLOOKUP function helps us or allows us to search through columns. And as you can see, we have a range of columns here. We have range of columns. So the first practice or the first exercise that we want to do is that we want to search for specific ID and then return the name of that ID. And we can do that by using the VLOOKUP. Assuming you have thousands of ID in this spreadsheet, and you have names, type, and the likes. But what you need basically is you want to find the name of a particular ID. Assuming we have ID 10 and we don't know the name of that ID. How do we get it without having to scroll through numerous number of like rows to get these names? We can do this, we can achieve this by making use of VLOOKUP, and this is how it works. I've already explained, or I've already shown or displayed the syntax here on the Google Sheet, and it is what VLOOKUP. The first argument is search key, and this search key is in this case the ID that we are trying to search. Whatever it is we're trying to search on the column is the search key. Then we have range. Range is basically the cell reference or the combination of basically the cells that we want to search within. So in this case, I've explained it in the last video, it's just a combination of cells. So in this case, this could be our range. This could be our range. Any combination of cell is known as a range. Then after that, we have index. Index simply means the position of the column in which you're trying to extract the information from. Don't forget, we have a search ID and we want to extract name of this search ID by simply using a VLOOKUP function. So in this case, index represents the position of the column where we want to extract our information, and then the last thing is sorted argument, and this is basically saying whether or not the table or the range that you are making use of is sorted either in ascending or descending order. So let's dive in and look at how VLOOKUP works. So first you need to use your equal to sign and then you click VLOOKUP. So when you type in VLOOKUP, you can already see your argument. So in this case, what is our search key? it is search ID. So since I've already written search ID, I'm just going to click on it basically. So once I click on it, that's I7. I think another way is to just type in 10, and that's if you don't have it in a reference already. But it's always advisable to have whatever number you're trying to, or whatever search key you're trying to get, to have it in a particular cell so you can reference it directly. That way, when you change the search key, you get another output automatically. So then after this, we have range. So for range, you have to highlight, or you have to select the range from the beginning of the range, which is like your search ID, down to the columns you're trying to extract the information from. You can increase the range up to type 4. You can increase the range up to total. But very important, make sure that your search key, whichever column you have your search key, in this case it is ID column, make sure that is what is beginning your range. I believe this is just one of the limitation of VLOOKUP. When you explore it more, you understand that you have to make sure that whatever it is, whatever column that that houses your search key, is beginning your range. But when you are making use of other functions like the index and match, you can have your search key column in any position in the range. So let's go back into our formula. So after selecting the range, the next thing is to move to the next argument, which is index. And I'll tell you how to determine your index. In this case, we are trying to get, or we are trying to extract the name information. That means we need to count from the beginning of the range. The first column is ID, which is 1, and the second column is name, which is 2. So if we are going to count from left to right, name, ID, name, type 1, type 2. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4. But in this case, we are trying to extract name. So we'll select 2 as our range. Now, this is very important. If you notice, you're already seeing like the output. Let me zoom in a little bit. Now, this is very important. Once you have to look at your range and understand if it is sorted or not. Oftentimes, when you're dealing with like a very random set of data, especially if you are searching, not using like the the numeric kind of like data like the ID, it is mostly false. But in this case, it is true, and I think the default setting is is already true. That's why we are getting like our number. So in this case, you have to put in true, since your range is sorted. If you notice, the order number is from 1 to 20, which is like in ascending order. So I'm going to type in true, or I can type in 1, which also represents true. But let's type in true, and then you close the bracket and hit equal to sign. So if you look at this, the search ID is 10 and the name is Caterpillar, which is the search ID 10 here. So that is how you make use of VLOOKUP functions, and it is very handy, especially when you are trying to bring data together. For example, you have some set of data in a separate tab, either on your existing spreadsheet or in another spreadsheet, and you're trying to get information from another spreadsheet. And I'm going to give you a typical example of that in a minute. So, but let's explore even more. Now, why are we making use of like a sort of like a cell reference? Is because it will be easy for us to change the values and see other numbers, or other automatically use the formula basically. So now I can change the search ID from 10 to 5, and to give me the name of that ID, which is chameleon. I can change it to 2 and to give me the name of that ID. So this is how VLOOKUP work, and it helps us to basically search information based on a set of what based on a search key. So another thing is assuming we change either of the argument. For example, instead of true, we make use of false. We are still able to get our value. Yeah, we are still able to get our value. But it's always important for you to know that, for you to make sure that it is, whether or not your range is sorted. Now let's go ahead and do another example, which is not based on which is not based on ID, but rather it is based on the search name, just like we're trying to interchange it at this point. So I'm going to specify a particular name and try to get the ID, and I would in this case try to replicate or produce some sort of error so you understand some of the things that you can some of the mistakes you can make when you are doing a VLOOKUP function. So let's try that. First thing is, let's pick a particular name on this. Let's say for example Metapod, and I'm going to click it here, and then I'm going to create a VLOOKUP. So my search key is going to be this, don't forget, and comma, my range in this case still going to be everything. I'm making use of everything, but you can select whatever range. Just make sure whatever range you're selecting, there is the element or the columns that you need there. So after this, I'm going to, what will be my index at this point? What will be my index? I'm trying to get the ID, so the index is 1. Now, is it sorted? True or false? In this case, it is false, because if you notice BIV, this is not sorted in any way. So now let's see what we have. See, we have NA, did not find value Metapod, and this is actually wrong, because we have Metapod here and we're supposed to get an ID of 1. We're supposed to get an ID of 11. This brings me back to the first statement that I said, make sure, and this is a limitation of VLOOKUP, make sure that your search key is on the first column of your range. So in this case, I'm going to kind of like add another column, and I would bring in my ID. So when I bring in my ID, we'll name this ID. I'm going to come back here, and then in this case, if you look at the range, we now have a ID. We have 2 different ID just to replicate this solution. And now name, so I'm going to come back here and edit the range. I'm going to change this to ID, which is like the name, down to type 1. Notice now our range is starting from the what? Our range is, the first column on our range is name, which is our search, key. Then the index now has changed to 2. Get this, the first column is index 1, the second column is index 2, which is our ID. So I'm going to edit this and change it to 2. Now when I hit equal to sign, we see we now have 11, which is the ID for Metapod. And we are able to achieve this because now our search key is the beginning of our range. You get that? And again, we can try to change the argument from false to true just to see if it will work, because we obviously know that the name is not sorted in any way. It is not sorted, so the argument is sorted has to be false, otherwise we'll get like a wrong value. So that means every argument in this VLOOKUP is actually very important, and you need to like pay attention to them. Make sure you are putting like the right argument, the right index, the right search key. Make sure your search key column is the beginning of your range, and you'll be able to get like the accurate value for your VLOOKUP. So when I hit equal to sign, you see this is 12, but metapod is actually 11, which means we need to change this, which means that one of the arguments is wrong. So I'm going to restore it back to false, and yeah, that's it. So the last thing I want us to do on VLOOKUP to make it more practical is that oftentimes you will need VLOOKUP to complete certain columns, not just using it to answer specific, not just using it to search for one or two values. Sometimes you may need it to fill up a whole column to make up your data. This way you are like, kind of like consolidating or adding new information to your table, because oftentimes this is what data analysts do. So in this case, I have VLOOKUP table, like I have a separate spreadsheet or a separate tab on my spreadsheet that has the name similar to the names that we have here, although it's unique. And then I have the type 3, which is a different type entirely. And now I'm trying to fill up the type 3 column. So how do I do this? I can achieve this by making use of VLOOKUP as well. And in this case, we are not just searching for one, but we're trying to like fill up the whole column. So I'm going to type in VLOOKUP, and my search key in this case is name. So notice how the search key is name, and here too is name. So we need to use this. Basically, it's just like we are looking for the search key here, and we are trying to bring up the type 3 of this value. So quickly you search it VLOOKUP, and then your search key has to be the name, and then now your range has to be where you're trying to get the value from. But the first example I made, we have both the search key and the range on the same tab, but now we're trying to get information from an entirely, from a separate range or a separate data. So in this case, you have to come to the tab that houses or that have your information, and then you highlight the range. You highlight the range. Notice how this particular lookup, this particular formula is now showing the tab name as well as the range. I'm going to explain, or you can check the absolute and relative cell reference chapter in this Google Sheet series to understand how this works and why we have like a name in front of a cell reference, which is something that is different from how it is always displayed, or how it was displayed in the last example. So after this, you need to select, we've selected the range, now we need to select the index. In this case, you just have to count the first column, like I said, is index 1, and the second column is index 2. So we need to click into, and then after that, is our column or is our range, is it sorted? In this case, it is false, it is not sorted. And which column are we talking about? It is the unique, this particular range column. That's what Google Sheet is asking, whether it is sorted or not. But very quickly, I want us to apply cell referencing, just so that when we are trying to autofill, our data doesn't, our range doesn't shift and we end up with like bad data. I talked about this in the last video, how to lock your range so that you can get the most accurate data. So in this case, just make use of F4, and it is all locked. It is all locked. It's not going to move even if you are even if you are autofilling. So I'm going to click equal to sign, and you see now that this name now outputs the type 3, which is fairy. So this is how VLOOKUP works, and it's very, very interesting, and it will make your life easy. So after doing this, I just need to autofill downward so that I can get all the information that I need. Now, if you look at this IFERROR, when you check here, we don't have any information about IFERROR here, and that's why it is returning NA, which means it is not available. Every name that is available is appearing here. So dragon for Charmander, eyes for Squirtle, Butterfree is psychic, but anyone that does not have type 3 is returning NA. So our formula is not wrong. The only thing is that we don't have the columns, we don't have all of the information for the name. So um, in a way you can clean it up by adding a sum of sort of like if error, just so that your data is clean. And what this does is you are just encapsulating all the function in an if else statement, such that whenever it returns like an NA or an error, it appears as empty. That's just what I did here. So if error is value, this is the value, that's our function, and whenever it is error, return like an empty cell, so we don't have to get all of this NA. So now we have like a clean data, and now I've successfully auto filled or like show, excuse me, I successfully bring in the type 3 data by using this information without having to search. And you already know the benefit of this. It is in the fact that all of this process is automatic, and if we have like a thousand or 2,000 uh, rows of information, we can easily do this within a minute or thereabout, just by making use of VLOOKUP function. So I hope you understand. One of the key takeaways that you should go with in this video is that VLOOKUP helps us to search for information based on certain value within the same range or a different range entirely. I gave you two different instances where we search for information in this range, similar range between ID and name and ID. And I also gave you an instance where we search for information from a separate column that has like a type 3 data, and we search for this information based on the unique name. And lastly, I showed you how to make use of an if error statement, just to make sure that your data is clean and good for report. So I hope you understand all of this, and in the next video I'm going to explain absolute and cell reference, because this is a very important concept in Google Sheet. So you can also practice with various example. Try to uh, copy this information on your Google Sheet and then play around with it, search using different uh, values and parameters, just like I've done. So I hope you find this video helpful, and see you on the next one.